And yes, before we move forward, is everyone okay if we record this meeting? Awesome. So yes, the echo, go ahead, Isabella, you're all set to go ahead and record. So yeah, if anybody has any questions, definitely feel free to let me know, shoot them in the chat. So after the intro, we'll do the basic questions you guys submitted in Google form. They were all great questions. Can't wait to hear the answers. After that, we'll be going into, we open up the floor for anybody who thinks that spur of the moment questions or things they would like President Varlotta to elaborate on. That'd be great. We'll be ending the meeting at promptly 6:44, 6:45. If we have a question that goes over around 6:47, but just note that around that time will be the last question. So when you guys submit your questions, send those in to me via the chat. Attach your name and the question so when you guys come to speak, you don't forget the question, so you're all ready to go. And then I'll be using that as a way of a speakers list. Just go through those names, ask your questions, get a response, and then we'll be going right ahead all orderly. So, cool. Are there any questions, comments, anything like that before we go ahead and move forward with the meeting? Great. Well, let's give a warm ASCLUG welcome to President Varlotta. We want to thank you for being here, and take this time if you want to give a quick little intro to the members and senators.
Good. It's nice to see all of you. I wish we were in person and hoping classification to educators. We're all hoping we'll get our vaccinations this coming month. But it is nice to see you on Zoom. As you probably know, I started at Cal Lutheran in September, so it's I'm almost in my 6th month now, my 5th month here at CLU. I've learned a lot in those 5 months, and I'm looking forward to seeing the campus in its full glory when all of the students come back. It's a little empty and quiet, and for those of us who are in this field, if you like a quiet campus, you're in the wrong place. So I'm really feeling I would really like to see more of you on campus soon, and I hope that becomes reality in the very near future.
Great. Thanks for that intro. So we can go ahead and get right into it with the first question. What are some improvements and changes that you would like to make at Cal Lutheran? So in the lines of housing, parking, student involvement, or facilities.
Yeah, as a university president, I'm very interested in leading the teams that make the kinds of changes that add value to your degree. So I know that while you're, on campus, there's all kinds of changes. Those that are convenience-related changes, like parking and short-term changes. And while I don't want to dismiss those as being completely unimportant, the kinds of changes I'm very interested in making are the kinds of changes, again, that add value to the degree. So 5, 10, 15, 50 years out, you look back at your Cal Lutheran experience with a great deal of pride. One of the big changes that we made this year, as soon as I arrived, but it was long in the works before I got here, was the opening of the Swinson Science Center, and that's a perfect example of the kind of change that would really add value to any students that are taking science classes, STEM-related classes, etc. So to have access to data arts, laboratories, facilities, etc. is very important to me. I'm also interested in working with others to lead the kinds of changes that foster a sense of belonging and affinity and inclusivity on campus. So I was thrilled that over the summer, my colleagues, including Melinda Roper and others that you know quite well, did a lot of great work with the BSU and Sister Circle and others to add, for example, the new Alexander Twilight Legacy of Black Excellence space. So that was a really great example of student space. We did a wonderful job over the summer of remodeling a space for the new transfer center. So those are the kinds of changes that really, I think, add to student life, add to student belonging. And again, another category of change is those that help students become very successful. So tutoring, writing centers, academic support, those are the kind of changes that I'm very interested in making.
Great. Thank you for that. And before we move forward, I wanted to ask, just to kind of catch up on lost time, is it okay if we go until 7 to kind of, awesome, great. So we're moving on to the next question. How can we connect with our surrounding schools like Moore Park, especially when celebrating and acknowledging common heritage? One of the examples given for that question was the Middle Eastern Heritage Month that we celebrate here and at Moore Park as well.
Yeah. That's a great question. I think it's really important for students who have classmates or colleagues, student colleagues in proximate universities like Moore Park, like Channel Islands. I think it would be really important to do some co-sponsoring, co-creating, and co-planning of events, like what you just said, Josh, the one around Middle Eastern Heritage Month, Black History Month, Women's History Month, Hispanic Month, I mean, you name it. But there's 2 or 3 or 4 colleges with a very easy drive. So if students would, take the initiative, like many of you already do, in planning great programs, but to work with your counterparts at those campuses to maybe co-sponsor a lecture, so to share the expenses, getting somebody, for example, maybe from New York or Chicago, everybody, chip in terms of plane reservations, hotels, etc., you can really cut down on the cost of bringing a top name or a top marquee, so to speak, speaker to campus, and have the person, do very short travels from here to maybe Oxnard to Moore Park to Channel Islands. So that's one example. Providing shuttle services to go to each other's events. So if there are dances or if there are lectures, debates, any kind of art program, if you don't have your own car, to provide perhaps some shuttle service back and forth to campuses is another easy, very inexpensive way to collaborate with colleagues from other campuses. And I think it would be really exciting to invite some students from Moore Park and Oxnard and some of the junior colleges to your class. So it would be fantastic to invite lower class students, freshmen and sophomores, to say, here's what a class looks like at a small private institution. Here's how engaged our classes are. Our seminars, have a small number of students, etc. It would be really interesting, I think, to maybe do some mentoring or some upper class, lower class collaboration to expose them to wonderful opportunities we have in our classrooms, our laboratories, our art studios, etc.
Great. Thank you for that. Next question we have. Are there plans to provide greater relief on student tuition?
Well, I'm pleased to announce that we have, I brought to the board in December a resolution to keep tuition steady. So we're not going to increase tuition at all for next year. So that's a step in the right direction. So that has been confirmed, officially adopted by the Board of Regents, so you will not experience any kind of tuition increase. The federal government has just supplied us with the second round of COVID relief money, and we will be using that money to provide grants to certain students who are in financial need. So we're working with Matt Ward's shop and the folks in financial aid to provide some relief for students who are in most need of financial assistance to make progress to the degree. So we have some of our federal monies in that regard.
Great, thank you. Next question. How do you plan on bringing the CLU community together once they all come back to campus?
Well, as a former student affairs professional, I'm very pleased that we have a great student affairs staff here on campus. So I'm hoping, and I know that they will, I know that Dr. Roper and the colleagues in student affairs will do great work in doing some welcome back activities and hosting, receptions, etc. I'm so looking forward to having students to the president's house. So the university owns a house right on Campus Drive that overlooks the Rams facility. And that's where I will be living in the spring semester, so at the end of the spring semester. So I'm really looking forward to inviting students over for coffee meetings, coffee chats, or pizza parties, or, you name it. There's a nice backyard out there, so that will be one of the things that I do as a president. I did that a lot at Hiram, where I hosted students in my own house, not my house, but the house that the university owned for the president. And students seem to really enjoy that. And I will take advantage of the programs that Student Affairs offers. I grew up in Student Affairs. I started my career, so I look forward to coming to many of the events that you will sponsor. The last thing you want, I think, is a middle-aged, 50-something-year-old woman planning, events for you, myself. But if you invite me to events, I don't often or ever say no to a student. If I can't do it at that time, I'm very good at saying, hey, I can't make this, but how about that? So if you extend an invitation to me, I would really like to come to your club or organization to get to know you, in smaller groups or in groups other than student government. So I hope that you will I hope that you will extend invitations to me like Josh did to come to today's meeting.
Great. Thank you for that, Lori. Next up, we have, what have you enjoyed most since arriving to CLU?
Yeah, what I really enjoy is working, and I'm not just saying this. I'm a woman of compliments only when I mean it. I don't give compliments deliberately or blindly. Josh Gaddison has been a true delight working with Josh, the president of ASCLU, and working with Joshua Carter McCall. We have two Joshes that are our student regents. And I must say that these two student leaders have really represented the California Lutheran University extraordinarily well. So it's been a real pleasure to meet with both Joshes. I have a team of vice presidents that I call my first team, and I've been just so grateful to them. All of them have been here for quite some time. Many of them, more than 10 years, so they've done a really nice job of acclimating me to Cal Lutheran, even amidst the global pandemic. So I've really enjoyed getting to know and working closely with my first team. I've thoroughly enjoyed working with the Faculty Senate Executive Committee. We have a brand new Faculty Senate, and there are 4 officers, Dr. Colleen Wyndham-Hughes, Dr. Julia Fogg, Dr. Michael Hart, Dr. Aaron Haresco, and just fantastic faculty colleagues. So it's the people that I've really enjoyed the most. And in addition to the people, I will tell you that, sitting here on February 22nd with a little blazer on and a tank top, is really something I also have enjoyed. I don't miss the Midwest winters and the -5 degrees that they've had at my former, college for on and off for the last couple of weeks. So the people and the weather, and I'm looking forward to the food. The restaurants are closed, but I'm looking forward to really good spicy food out here as well.
Those are some great answers. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next up, we have, for fall 2021, do you think there will be a virtual option for students who wish to stay home?
That's a really good question, and the answer is I'm not sure. So I would like to think that come fall that we will be able to safely return to classes if our new presidential administration under Joe Biden is correct. President Biden has said that everyone who wants the vaccine will be able to get one in July. I'm going to hold him to his word and write him letters and my congressmen and women and senators. So presuming that all of us who want vaccines will get them, I'm really hoping to have a fully, robust, vibrant, face-to-face or mask-to-mask, even if it is, experience. Does that mean that we would not have any options for students to be remote? Probably we'd have some options, but I'm hoping that there's the exception for those that have health issues or some hardships rather than the norm. So my hope is that we will return to campus for face-to-face instructions and, give me a feel for what Cal Lutheran is really all about. I hope there's a lot of activity and a lot of students on campus in the fall.
I definitely think there will be. Thank you. Next up, we have, what do you think is the toughest part about being president in a pandemic?
The toughest part about being a president, particularly a new president, is not being able to meet people face to face. It's easy to maintain relationships on Zoom with people that we know and can kind of read and have a sense for. I find it very difficult to create and build new relationships on Zoom. So that's been very difficult to come to a new community and not have that sense of people or place yet and try to create that in a virtual environment. I have found to be somewhat unsatisfying. So that's been the most difficult part about being a president in the pandemic.
Great. And next up we have, what are the plans for graduation and for having a Black graduation?
Well, I hope you just saw the note that went out, I think just moments ago. I'm just thrilled to say that a group of colleagues did a lot of legwork. I wasn't one of them, but a few folks in academic affairs, Ryan Curley in my office, some of the folks again in Provost Nielsen's office, to identify a venue that we will be able to celebrate graduation. So we will go to the Ventura County Fairgrounds, which I think is a really cool place. They have a lock key program where you drive your car in. You'll be able to bring a carload of friends and families. Depending on what tier we're in, you'll be able to walk across the stage. If we're in even red, we'll be able to do it, I believe. Yellow for sure. If we're in purple, God forbid, or, back with these stay-at-home orders where we have to stay in our car, and flash your name and I think your picture on the screen and cheer for you as honk your horn, etc. So I'm thrilled that we will have a very celebratory commencement, not only for the spring 21 class, but spring 20. We're sending out a survey, and if they want to come back, since they were cheated out of a face-to-face graduation last fall, we're doing everything we can to accommodate them as well. I'm also very pleased to know that my colleagues in student affairs are working very diligently to make sure that we have different cultural graduations or celebrations. I don't want to call them graduation per se because there'll be celebrations. So we're looking at April 24th to have any number of affinity group celebrations, including a Black celebration. So I think that if I'm looking at the calendar correctly, the late evening around 7 o'clock will be for Latinx students. We're going to have two of those, one at 5:30 and one at 7. The African American graduation celebration will be at 4 o'clock if the schedule holds on the 24th. We'll have a Jewish celebration at 2:30, an LGBT at 1, and an Asian Pacific at 11:30, and a Native American in the morning. So we're really trying to pay respects for all affinity groups and hold nice celebrations on that day.
Great. That was definitely great to hear. And final question before I open up the floor. So if you guys want to start thinking about what questions you want to ask personally to President Varlotta, definitely start thinking about that. So, how will you provide diversity, equity, and inclusion for all CLU students?
Well, thankfully, it's not just me. Much like my philosophy on enrollment, where I think that enrollment is everyone's business, that we all need to work hard to recruit students and retain students. We retain students every day by the way we treat you and serve you and teach you. So is my belief with DEI, that diversity, equity, and inclusion is everybody's job. So what are some of the things that I've been doing in my first 5 months? I've been working with, again, the first team of vice presidents to revamp policies that students said, were in need of repair. So we've really bolstered the anti-discrimination and anti-harassment policy, the prohibitions on harassment and discrimination. So we've new policies on the book in terms of that. I know that Dr. Roper and the team have used those policy revisions to update the student handbook. So we have a student handbook that's much more contemporary and aligned with both the challenges and the possibilities of, 2021. We've created, as I said, new spaces. So the institution has put its money where its mouth is and created the new VSU space in the student union, which is gorgeous. We've also done a lot of work in raising money during CARES Day. So we have a small pool of money that Dr. Roper now has access to, and affinity groups can apply for that money. So that I know that sometimes when groups come to student government, if the program isn't open to the whole student body, there's a little bit of an issue of providing student fees to support the program. So as a president, my colleagues and I have worked hard to raise some money so that there are programming dollars for affinity groups to celebrate culture, etc., and not necessarily open it to the entire campus. I'm also pleased to announce that we're hiring 2 new diversity officials, a chief diversity officer, which is a huge position that we haven't had. So we're in the midst now of working with a consultant to bring in a chief diversity officer. We will do a search over the spring semester. If some of you want to be involved in a panel discussion that interviews that candidate, please let Josh know about that. And we've also approved funding for a diversity expert in curriculum. So how do we make sure that our curriculum, both in the general education and in various majors, has the type of representation in terms of authors, in terms of first primary sources, in terms of experts, etc. So we're in the midst of hiring 2 new diversity experts as well. So I think we've, in 5 months, have done quite a bit in terms of policies, in terms of programs, and now in terms of positions. So I hope that I'm sure we're headed in the right direction, and those are just the beginning steps we're going to take. Diversity is not a 1 or even a 2 or 3 and done. This work will last with us, or will continue for the foreseeable future. So we have to have that mentality going in. Let's set up the pathways and the programs, but know that the work is ongoing.
Thank you for that. That was a great answer. Okay. So that's all the questions I have that I'm going to be speaking of. So now I'll just be going down the speakers list and who I have that submitted questions. Like I said before, if you have something that you guys want to ask President Varlotta, send that to me with your name, and then I'll add you to the speakers list. So first up, we have Zaria. You can go ahead and ask your question.
Oh, okay. I'm so sorry. My entire computer is broke. But Josh, can I actually change my question?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, President Varlotta, recently somebody posted on Instagram about a sexual experience that they went through after hearing another story about somebody else who went through an experience as well. And it was poorly taken care of. And it's both cases still don't have any solutions. Nothing really came through. So what is your plan to hopefully solve that and hopefully change any future experiences that people go through?
I'm going to talk in the hypothetical, okay? So I know that there are specific instances, but let me talk in the hypothetical first, and then to whatever extent I can circle back to this instance. Just as we have laws called FERPA, the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, that protect all of you from having us disclose information about a student conduct case, we have similar confidentiality laws for employees. So it's very likely to be the case. Let's look at it from a student perspective, that a student could get could violate a policy, could get go through the judicial process, could have sanctions levied against him or her, and then tell his or her friends that, quote, nothing happened. Because, maybe he or she was embarrassed that, let's just say in this case that we're just talking about a male student, that he got in trouble. So if that student goes back and tells his roommates or friends, oh, no big deal, nothing happened, I'm home free, we can't set the story straight because FERPA prohibits us from sharing confidential information with others to say, oh, that's not true. All we're able to say is that we took the situation seriously, we put it through its appropriate steps in the process, and if sanctions were warranted, they were imposed. Such is the case with the HR situation. So I'm really glad that this question came up, because so often it's the case that people think that nothing happened or that a situation wasn't investigated because the person in the student case who is found in policy violation is embarrassed of the sanction or doesn't want his or her friends to know, isn't always as forthcoming as we might expect. The same could be true on the HR side. So just because you hear that something happened and that an assault happened or sexual misconduct occurred or an act occurred that was unethical or worse, illegal, please don't presume that just because somebody posted on Facebook and says that nothing happened, that that's the case. I can assure you that when cases come forward, they are investigated very vigorously and sanctioned. If the person is in policy violation, a sanction is levied. And I can't get into more specifics, but please be critical thinkers and just think about how many times you see something on Facebook that isn't true about a friend that you know, and give us the benefit of the doubt that just because you read something doesn't necessarily mean that the way it's being posted reflects what actually happened behind closed doors, either in a FERPA case or a HIPAA situation or an HR situation.
Great. Next up, we have Ari.
Hi. So my question is more in regards to residence life. I know I'm a resident, I'm an RA on campus, but I've heard from residents and students that they've tried on multiple occasions to reach out to administrators or residence life to get an answer and haven't been able to have been heard. So that I'm asking this like for them directly to you. What would it realistically take for first just to be heard, but like students to be able to be heard better, but to be understood in a way that we can change COVID dorm policies to either be lifted or relaxed, because we're getting a lot of hypothetical answers, which I know this is all hypothetical, but there's a lot of students who are mentally, physically, and emotionally suffering a lot right now because they can't have people closer to them. And there's outside spaces, but with like weather changes right now especially, is there something realistically that could happen this semester to change that policy in place that doesn't allow students inside dorms?
Well, a couple of things. We have to abide, we're still in the purple tier, so we have to abide the state regulations, particularly, I'm on the email daily with Dr. Levin, who runs county health, and I'm begging to get ourselves vaccinated, so I got to make sure that, as a leader of an institution that's kind of under the microscope right now, that, we abide what the purple tier says. So please know that. So we take our orders, so to speak, from the state and the county, etc. What can you do to have your voice heard? Like, I'm a little surprised to hear that, but I encourage you. You're an RA to work with the folks in residence life. If for some reason they're being non-responsive, then you find out what the chain of command is. If this person is being unresponsive, go to the supervisor. If the supervisor is non-responsive, go to Dr. Roper. I hope you don't have to go to a vice president for that. If so, first go to the first line first, and then go to the supervisor next. I am concerned about mental health. I appreciate the comment. I'm hoping that we can continue to do a lot of things outside. We've invested over $200,000, more than that, $300 I believe now, in the tents for the classrooms. But when they're not being used for classrooms for instruction, we can use the outdoor tents for small group work, for tutoring. So if indeed you want to reserve that space, we can figure out a way to have the housing folks perhaps work with the academic folks who are reserving it during the day for classes to use that outdoor space for social activities, perhaps distance ones, or academic support. So if we can use those safe spaces because they have lights, they have heaters, they have technology, I hope that that's at least one step in the right direction that we can make. As soon as we get into the red tier, I think we're going to have a lot more flexibility about the residence life policies. But right now with the purple tier, we're really taking our guidance from county health that has encouraged us to be pretty strict. I don't want to talk in hypotheticals about those things. I have to talk about hypotheticals about policy violations, but this is not a hypothetical. And if you want to drill down a little more specific, happy to go as deep as we can on this particular topic.
Am I allowed to ask a follow-up?
Yeah, you can go ahead on that, Oregon.
Yeah, so the thing I'm getting the most is, and like just all the resistance, because I know like the county restrictions are changing. We are just been moved into the purple tier, and they're looking like they're getting better with cases going down every day. And I know we haven't had very many cases on campus this semester. And a lot of that's just because it is the beginning of a semester, but also I believe us being such a small campus, we've kind of created our own bubble on campus, if you will. My biggest fear is to see the same thing that happened at the end of last semester. Students did a great job the first 2 months of school, and by the end, almost the holidays, students were just restless and anxious and really were needing some kind of social engagement, and they went and found that elsewhere. That created a dangerous environment for them to begin. They're out in public spaces, off campus, no kind of supervision, no kind of accountability. And so I feel like, honestly, if there were more lax rules this semester, that might be able to increase, like, the supervision of the interactions students have and allow them to be on campus with people that they would see at home and to take their masks off to eat, or that they would be able to go sit in a park during the day, but also allow that to extend to the night. Because, I mean, the sun still sets around 6 p.m., and there's still, on an average college student, like 3 to 4 hours of, like, alert time. So just being able to, like, be together in a room, or just in, like, the dorm study spaces, because I know, like, if I have a friend in a different hall, they can't be in my study space. And if we're in a class together, which I see a lot, I have a lot of friends in my classes, but, I can't use a whiteboard because I can't be outside with a whiteboard studying unless I'm using the outdoor classroom, so then it's cold. And yeah, so it's like, it's that kind of concern for me, is that come April, end of March, students are going to get reckless because they're so anxious from being so isolated that we're going to see another outbreak because we're not trying to take baby steps to prevent that now.
Well, are taking baby steps, maybe we should take more. And so those of you who are RAs and are in clubs, I need to count on you to help us. I love your comment. I mean, we need to do more coordinated activities outside. I know that you want to hang out at night. I mean, I remember what it was like and do things, at 9 and 10 o'clock. But let's figure out what we can do. And I mean, we can do things outside at 9 and 10 o'clock. It's warm here. I mean, it's not that bad. So I would encourage those of you who are RAs, those of you in clubs. I mean, let's find. I think it's possible to do, marshmallow or sports things at night. To do, I don't know if we're allowed to have Ryan Van Hoymer will strangle me if I talk about a bonfire, but I don't know what we're allowed to do. But let's figure it out. Let's figure out what we can do outside, what we can do outside at night. I would like nothing more to hear students outside laughing, outside doing something. Even if I'm in bed, I'm also bored and frankly lonely and disappointed by the lack of student life. So I encourage those of you who are in clubs who have access to some programming dollars, let's figure out what we can do outside for now, and then let's think about how we can use the courtyard. When I talk to the international students, they have great ideas about using the courtyards that abut some of the residence halls because they're closer and a little more convenient. So let's see if we can move, we can't do things inside quite yet, but I think we can do quite a few things outside in the late hours that are, more fun hours for students. I know you don't want to have, parties or things at 5 p.m., but I think we can do things at 9 and 10 o'clock. So let's figure out what they are so that we don't have the off-campus parties that result in poor decision-making on everybody's part.
Great. Thank you for that. So next up, we have Garrett. And just to give you guys a heads up, the speakers list is getting pretty full. So we are going to be wrapping up in about 10 minutes. So if you guys have any questions or you want to hop on the speakers list, I would suggest doing that now as opposed to later. Garrett, you're up.
Hi there. So I have 2 questions. I'm going to start with one first. Oh, I'm Garrett, by the way. I'm the Senate director. I was having Wi-Fi issues and had to drive to campus to join this call. But so my first question, I'll let you answer this one, then I'll ask my second one, is, so in case you're unaware, Cal Lutheran has a really bad parking problem, specifically for commuter students. And now with such an influx of commuter students, over half now commuters, is there any sort of plan for parking, especially like with this semester, because you've put up outdoor classrooms in parking areas. So I personally feel that there should be no stipulation, only commuters can park in these spots. They should be able to park in residential spots this semester as well. So are there any plans for parking with this new burst of commuter students?
As you get to know me, you'll know that I've learned not to give answers to questions that I don't know. So let me say that I didn't know that the commuter parking wasn't as big of an issue as you're suggesting it might be. So I had to do a little research on that. I do know that we put tents in some parking lots. So if you're telling me that we put tents in parking lots where commuters used to park, I will tomorrow talk to those folks to see whether or not we can then open up other spaces for students. So if we took commuter spaces away from you to put instructional tents up, then it makes sense, particularly while the campus, frankly, is pretty empty, to provide you access to other parking spots. So let me do a little research on that and get back to Josh or Dr. Roper to see, what's of the answer to that question is, Garrett.
Great. Thank you so much. I appreciate your honesty there. So my second question is, can you justify your decision to furlough and lay off your lower paid employees rather than taking a cut out of your own salary and the cut of your cabinet, who make a considerable amount more money than the students or the employees who were furloughed, who also have a way more direct impact on the students who work more closely, because on this group of students who are here currently, I can say that these are the only students on campus that can list off who Melinda Roper is, who Regina Biddings-Moreau is, who Matt Ward is. These other students don't know who they are, but you furloughed people who they do know. So can you justify why you did that? And because this university is all about transparency, are you willing to go public with the numbers and how that benefits the university's finances better?
We've already gone public with the numbers. So the furlough and layoffs generated $1.5 million out of it. When I came presented with a shortfall that was $24 million out of a $120 million budget. So almost 25% revenue shortfall that I had to mitigate in a month. Because I came in September and our fiscal year starts in June. So June, July, and August had already passed. We were in the second quarter, so we needed to make some big decisions. We laid off, the folks we laid off, many of them were at the higher levels of the institution. Several of them were, a couple of them associate vice presidents. So it's not that only lower level folks were furloughed or laid off. The layoffs occurred at the higher levels. The senior cabinet took, in some sense, a cut in the sense that we paused our retirement for everyone, and because our retirement was based on our salary, the cut that we took to retirement was the largest by far. The vice president's cut to retirement was much more than anybody else's. So in some ways, from a financial perspective, the loss that we incurred was higher than the loss that others incurred. I also have expected the cabinet to work at least 6 days a week, but most of them 7 days a week, full days, 12-hour days. So if you then start to add on those kinds of hours, you got to figure out who's going to do the work. So I needed them to do the work. I haven't had a day off since September 2nd, not a Saturday or a Sunday, not complaining. But those are the kinds of sacrifices that we made while we took a retirement cut and we're working 6 or 7 days a week. Can I justify not cutting them further? I can. I can. We're hoping to bring people back in the fall. That will depend on our enrollment. So right now we're down again with enrollment. So we have to figure out a way to balance revenues with expenses. So let's keep our fingers crossed that we'll have more students come in the fall so that we will not have to put another furlough plan in place. But when we only have, in the fall we had 385 students in residence versus 1,500, it makes sense then, sad as it is, even though I was a residence director for the first 2 years of my life, if you only have a third, not even 25% of your folks in residence, sad though it is, it makes sense to furlough those folks who serve a population that's only 25% present. So we made decisions based on who was impacted by less work to assume. I'm sorry that it turned out that they were people that you knew, but their jobs were impacted because we had fewer students on campus. That was the sad but necessary truth.
Great, and time is running out, so this will most likely be our final question. Next up, we have Greg.
Okay.
Hey, President Varlotta. Really nice to have you here and speak to all of us. So as a student athlete and a senator, I represent most of athletics here. So if there was another outbreak like there was like this fall that was connected with athletics, would you consider canceling the season, or how would you go about proceeding with an outbreak with athletics? Because I know you do play a big role with that in terms of the, like, do we have a chance to play or not? So.
Okay, and Gregory, what team are you on?
I'm on the baseball team.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that you asked that question because I am, I'm a straight shooter and, I call it the way it is, and I was very disappointed that the outbreak that we had in the fall seems to be related to an activity that was hosted by the baseball team. That doesn't mean that all of our issues, all of our parties, because I know about a few now, are hosted by athletes. But I've been working very closely with the athletic director, with Dan Kuntz, and with Vice President Ward to make sure that athletes and all of us understand that we will hold students accountable who are hosting parties. And I mean, we just can't, getting back to, I think it was Ari who asked the question. I know that you want to get together. I know you want to have parties. I want to have a party. But if we find folks are having parties, there will be consequences to that. I've talked to Matt and Dan that if by some chance a team hosted a party, et cetera, that there would be consequences to that team. Would we suspend play? Would we, prohibit practice? Perhaps that would indeed be an outcome. So we're right now working through that. We're hoping that we don't have to face that consequence. We're hoping that that students don't have to face that consequence. But we will hold those who are hosting parties accountable, and those who attend parties will have some consequences, but probably not as much as those who host them. So, and if you find out that people are hosting them, if you can let us know, I'm very pleased to say that the few parties that have come to light by students saying, I'm really uncomfortable with the fact that this house is having a party and I want it to be safe and I don't want my friends to go to the party and bring it back to me. You should know about it. So the information that we've been getting has largely come from students who are really concerned about safety and have reported the parties to us. I'm sure there will be more baseball parties this semester, Greg, right?
Excuse me?
I said, I'm sure there will be no more baseball parties, until we all get vaccinated, and then we'll have a nice big one. But until then, we're not having any more parties where people can get sick.
Ari, are you going to say something?
I just want to clarify. When I was speaking earlier, I wasn't talking about parties. I quite literally meant like study groups and just having the space to have like one or two friends in your dorms, like that kind of leniency on the COVID rule.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. I'd like to further consider that. I mean, I'd like to, believe me, I would like to figure out a way where you could have small study groups and that we could have friends and I could have somebody come in. To be dismissive. I know how lonely it gets. So we will continue to talk about this at Cabinet. I thank you for bringing that up.
Great. Well, thank you for answering our questions and speaking to the students, Dr. Varlotta. I want to take this time before you go, just if you had any closing remarks you want to say before you sign off.
I want to say a couple of things. That I'm excited to be the 8th president of California Lutheran University, your first female president. I've come here in good faith to really work with the community to be as strong as we can. I know that there's none of us got started on the right track or right foot in the sense that we got to know each other through a pandemic with a huge budget shortfall. But I believe that we can do wonderful things together if we really, work together and row in the same direction. I'm a big fan of the mission and the Lutheran values of grace and generosity and inclusivity. So if we can strive to give each other the benefit of the doubt and to actually give each other more than we deserve, that's my definition of grace, and include all of each other, even people that, think differently than us or might look different than we do or worship differently. I mean, that's what school's about, to open our minds and to expose ourselves to things that we might not otherwise experience. And I really hope that we can build an affinity as a big we, as opposed to little groups of us and them. I want very much to communicate. I really want to work with all of you to create a campus community where we all see each other as we, as members of the same team in the same Cal Lutheran family. That's really important to me. And I hope that you'll join me in that endeavor.
Thank you so much. Give a round of applause for Dr. Varlotta, everybody. It was a pleasure having you here, and thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Bye. Awesome. Great job, you guys. Great question asking. Very engaged, very attentive. So round of applause for you guys as well. Go ASCLUG.
I just want to make you all aware that the higher up that was fired was Jim McHugh, who we all know wasn't doing his job. So, ooh, go Title IX.
Great. So yeah, with that said, I don't have anything else for you guys. I'm going to go ahead and move to adjourn this meeting as long as Alyssa or Garrett